Okay, welcome back to another video. I'm going to do another example of multiplying matrices, okay? And so in this example, I have two matrices that I'm going to multiply by each other. I have this one, and I just made these up off the top of my head, and this one, okay? And you'll notice here, this one is a 4 by 3 matrix. This one is a 3 by 2 matrix. So since these two numbers are the same, right, these two matrices can actually multiply. Okay? In other words, I've got the same number of things along here as I do in a column here. Okay? And so to multiply matrices, again, remember what we do is we take a row from the left matrix. So we're going to be dealing with our rows here. Okay. We're going to take our rows and times them by the columns, or the columns, as my professor used to say. The columns of the right matrix. Okay. And then we just kind of add the entries together. Okay. So what we do, the product of these two matrices. Well, for my first row, first column entry, what I'm going to do is I take the first row from this matrix, the first column from this matrix, and I times those. So I do 1 times 1 is 1, plus -1 times 2 is -2, and then 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so I'm just doing this one times this one times this one, and then this one times that one. Okay, so you follow it in the same order. Okay, so that would be the entry in the first row, first column of the product. Okay, now to get the entry in the second row, first column, I take the second row of the left matrix and still the first column of the right matrix, okay, and I times those two together. So I do 2 times 1 is 2, 0 times 2 is 0, and then 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so I do this row, the second row, times the first column. Okay. Now to get the third row and first column, I do third row times first column. So 3 times 1 is 3. -1 times 2 is -2. And then 1 times 1 is 1, so plus 1. Okay, and we just keep doing this. Okay, so fourth row, first column. 4 times 1 is 4. 0 times 2 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so that does the first column of the matrix. Now to get the second column of the matrix, we would just use the second column from our second matrix. Okay, so I do this row times this column. So the first row times the second column to get this place. So we get 1 times 2 is 2. -1 times 1 is -1. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, so that's that entry. Second row, second column, second row, second column. 2 times 2 is 4. 0 times 1 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay. Now we do this row, this column. So 3 times 2 is 6. -1 times 1 is -1. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8. 0 times 1 is 0, and then 1 times 2 is 2. Okay? Whew. So now we just simplify. Okay? And when we simplify 1 plus negative 2 plus 1, that's just 0. 2 plus 0 plus 1 is 3. And then 2, 5, 4 minus 1 is 3. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. 8 plus 2 is 10. Okay? So this would be the product of those two matrices. Okay? And you'll actually notice in this, we ended up with, when we multiplied these two matrices together, we ended up with a, well, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So 4 rows and 2 columns. Okay. So you'll notice kind of what happened is that in order to multiply the matrices, these two numbers needed to be the same. Okay. The number of rows needed to be the same here as the number of columns of this one needed to be the same as the number of rows in this one, right? And then essentially when we multiply them, these middle two just cancel out and we get a 4 by 2 matrix. Okay. Now, you can't just say 4 by 2. You actually need to figure out what the matrix is. But that's just kind of a handy trick to kind of know what sizes your matrices will be after you're done multiplying. If these two numbers don't line up, if they're not the same, you can't multiply the matrices. It's not defined. Okay? So hopefully that's helpful. I might do one more video multiplying matrices, a smaller example. But anyway, that's it for this, and I will see you in the next one.